right. Well, on the sake of time, I know will be some people who will get in and join us, but we will get started with some introductions and whatnot. Hello, I'm Kaylin Risvold, President and CEO of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for joining us today. A huge thank you goes out to Maria Manzo and Congressman Foster's office. Thank you so much for helping orchestrate this event. You were able to juggle a lot of schedules, believe it or not, to get this all scheduled and done quickly. So thank you so much for getting this done. And I'm so excited to be able to present this program to our chamber members and our community members today. Very excited. So today we are joined by Congressman Bill Foster, Congressman Sean Casten, and Bo Steiner from the SBA. Congressman Lauren Underwood was unable to join us today due to some scheduling, but she did want to share her remarks through a video. So we're going to start by playing her video. And I think Lindsay's going to pull that up so that we can hear from Congressman Underwood as well.
Yes.
Lindsay, I can see her but not hear her.
Oh, Okay, volume is turned all the way up.
You may have to check a box, like unshare, check a box to share the audio with your video. It's like share your computer audio or something like that.
Let's see.
You would think 11 months into Zoom life that we would have everything that we've got.
You would think. So it says computer audio is working. I can go ahead and try and mess around with this, but we'll absolutely email it out to everyone following here as well so that you can hear Lauren Underwood's remarks.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you. I see we have Ashley from Representative Underwood's office with us here today. Thank you for joining and speaking directly. Lindsay, you're still screen sharing. Thank you for. Oh, okay.
I'm going to stop that.
Thank you for Ashley for joining us and making sure that you can bring some of this great information from our Q&A section back to Congressman Underwood. So I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having us. I apologize the Congresswoman couldn't be here today. I'm also happy to share my audio over the video, whatever is easiest for you all. I do think it's something with when you go to screen share, you have to click share audio as well. But I am not the Zoom expert yet, even after 11 months.
Well, you should practice so that when you run the video with Lauren, and then you can do the voiceover.
I'll just be her voice. I have the remarks right here.
Would you like me to play it?
Okay, I think.
Well, if you want, also, we can have Sean and I can give our little brief spiel.
Yep.
And then if you get the technical problem solved, you can play it at that point.
Let's start with that. And we are going to start with introductions. So thank you, Congressman Foster, who is just speaking. Congressman Foster is a scientist and businessman representing the 11th Congressional District, of which he has done since 2013. He serves on the House Financial Services Committee and is the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee of the House Science and Technology Committee. Before serving in Congress, he spent more than 2 decades as a high-energy particle physicist at Fermilab and was recently appointed to the House Select Committee on Coronavirus Crisis. So, Congressman Foster, I do want to give you a few moments to introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to thank the Naperville Chamber for inviting me to be with you and really acknowledge the incredible work that the Naperville Chamber has been doing to provide support and resources to small businesses in our community. You know, your work is deeply valued and does not go unnoticed. You know, the past several months have been very difficult for all of us, and but I really do believe with the new administration that we will be able to continue to make progress combating COVID-19 and supporting small businesses during this unprecedented time. Every one of us mourns the loss of the lives of over 400,000 Americans, including 20,000 people right here in Illinois. While people and families who lost loved ones have suffered the most during the pandemic, small businesses and their workers continue to face challenges, and our economy is really being hit pretty hard. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccines are proving safe and effective, and they are finally being distributed at an increasing rate. And these are an absolutely critical component to reopening our economy and getting our small businesses at full capacity once again. In my work on the Coronavirus Oversight Committee, we have been focusing on the manufacturing process to make sure that we have the contracts in place and that the delivery schedules are being met. And if they are, then we will at least have the promised vaccines in hand in the quantity that we need by this summer and perhaps by the late spring. And so now we have to focus on getting those into the arms. Scientifically, there's just tremendously good news that's happening. These vaccines are proving to work better than really anyone dared hope. Just to quote one single very important number on that, roughly 2 to 2.5 weeks after you get your first shot of any one of the 3 vaccines that are being distributed at scale in the Western countries, roughly 2 to 2.5 weeks, at that point, you stop going to the hospital, period. That almost without exception. You can get sick at different rates. It's vastly reduced. The effectiveness is maybe 80% at the 2-week point for all these vaccines. But they're nearly 100% effective at keeping you from having to go to the hospital. And that's the single biggest reason why we have to do this. And when people understand that and they get those vaccines, that's when our economy really reopens. In the meantime, we have to do everything that we can. You know, as a small businessman myself, I understand how hard it is and how much work goes into running a small business and how hard it can be. And this pandemic has been way too hard on all of those trying to keep their doors open and their employees from local communities, and just trying to keep meeting ends. And so to help out with this, late December of last year, we supplemented the CARES Act with an additional amount of money. The legislation that we passed extends the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, that provides forgivable loans to small businesses and nonprofits to maintain their existing workforce and help pay the rent, mortgage, and utilities. And Bo will be giving you a lot more details on all of this. And in addition, the Small Business Administration COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loans were established to provide 6 months of working capital to meet financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met had the disaster not occurred. These EIDL loans are not forgivable, but they may be repaid at any time with no prepayment penalties. The Small Business Administration Express Bridge loans are also available. All of these resources are designed to inject capital into small businesses, which is urgently needed to help weather the economic storm. And it's also true that these resources are not going to be nearly enough to support our struggling businesses. And the scope of this crisis requires continued congressional action. And that's why Sean and I are going to be heading back to Washington in about a week to try to see if we can get the expansion of all these programs and other programs that President Biden has asked Congress for. So I hope we'll be able to deliver on this because small businesses need it. Anyway, in the weeks to come, we're all absolutely committed to making this happen for the American people. And I look forward to the upcoming discussion. Thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you did mention Representative Casten, who is here with us today as well. He represents Illinois' 6th Congressional District, located in the western suburbs. He serves on the House Financial Services, Science, Space, Technology, and Select Climate Crisis Committees. He is co-chair on the New Dems Climate Change Task Force. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Molecular Biology and Biochemistry from Middlebury College in '93 and a Master of Engineering Management and a Master of Science in Biochemical Engineering from the Thayer School of Engineering at Dartmouth. Representative Casten worked as a clean energy consultant and manager At Arthur D. Little from 97 to 2000 and served as the president and CEO of Turbosteam Corporation. In 2006, he co-founded Recycled Energy Development, RED, who built, owned, and operated industrial sited waste energy recovery plants throughout North America. Congressman Castan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk as well.
Thank you, Kaylin. It's always such a pleasure to do these with Bill and have you read our respective resumes, and you realize that we all, both Bill and I, really have just been hungering to be in politics ever since we were young lads by our career trajectory. Really want to thank the Naperville Chamber for putting this on. Really want to thank Bo Steiner. I have lost track of how many of these presentations I've done with him. It's tragic that we need it, but just a tremendous resource. And thank you yet again, Bo, for helping out all the small businesses in our community to navigate some of these complicated programs. This is, as Bill mentioned, this is the third round of the PPP programs. If you participated in prior rounds, you can participate in this one again as long as you've substantially spent or committed most of the funds that you drew last time. Do pay close attention though, because every time we renew this program, we've tweaked it a little bit. We've sort of identified where there were gaps in the economy that weren't quite being targeted by the last round, and from changing some of the business sizes, changing some of the banks that are eligible, changing some of the forgivability rules, changing some of the limits. We've tweaked it every time in ways that are hopefully beneficial. But just saying that even if you think you're a total pro on PPP, this is a new program, and pay close attention. Probably the most significant changes in this one, there's a slight reduction. You have to be 300 employees or less. I think the last PPP was for 500 employees or less. There's a recognition that restaurants really don't fare very well in the PPP program because the amount you can borrow is 2.5 times payroll, and when you have a lot of tipped wages, that doesn't go through. Frankly, we didn't totally fix that. We couldn't get support across the aisle to do as much as was needed, but we did increase that. If you were in that restaurant category, you can now take up to 3.5 times your payroll, which gives you a little bit more cushion. And then we worked in, I forget the acronym, the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Act, but this is to help the sort of unique circumstances of movie theaters, concert venues, places that really have absolutely no way to remain open and have any revenue as long as it's not healthy for people to be in close proximity. And there's just different needs for those programs. So those were all rolled out. I won't go into great detail on that because, like I said, Bo is vastly smarter on the implementation details than I am. But if you get through this and you've got more questions, you're stuck, please reach out to our office. We had actually separately set up an event tomorrow afternoon with the whole 6th Congressional District, and I think we may have yours in there as well, Bill, because we've been pushing for all of it. You're all welcome to attend that. It's not limited to Naperville Chamber. So if you've got more questions, chime in tomorrow as well. But thanks again. I echo everything that Bill was saying. We've got to get this public health crisis behind us, and then the economic crisis is comparatively easy. In the meantime, we're trying to make sure that everybody who is those engines of our economy that you all are remain solvent and can keep your payroll going until we get the public health crisis under control. So thank you, and look forward to the presentation. I think you are muted, Kaylin.
Kaylin had mentioned that her computer froze, so I will hop in for the next introduction. We have Robert Bo Steiner, who serves as the District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration's Illinois District Office. Steiner leads a team of small business experts focused on strengthening the entrepreneurial and small business ecosystem through SBA's portfolio of small business programs. Prior to his federal service, Mr. Steiner spent 8 years in the private sector with roles in executive management, sales, and marketing. Mr. Steiner began his career in the U.S. Navy, serving as a commissioned officer and naval aviator. So I will go ahead and give the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today with Congressman Foster, Congressman Castan. Always good to see both of you. Thanks to the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce as well for having me. I know that this can be a lot with everything that we're rolling out. And the more that we can talk about it, answer your questions, hopefully that helps you as you try to figure out what's best for you as a business owner or a nonprofit to keep operations going. So what I wanted to do is just run through it's a pretty quick slide deck. I'm going to hit some of the high points on the new stimulus and how it's changed over time from the initial enactment of the CARES Act. And then leave plenty of time for questions, because I think that's where we bring a lot of value in the process. So just to kind of get started, so the latest stimulus was enacted on December 27th of 2020, and it brought additional funding to a number of different programs. Chief among them, as both Congressman Foster and Congressman Castan mentioned, was the Paycheck Protection Program, funded at $284.5 billion, but also brought additional funding to a targeted economic injury disaster loan grant, extended the period where economic injury disaster loans are available, created the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant at $15 billion appropriated, and also provided additional debt relief to small businesses. And we'll talk a little bit about each one of those areas. So a lot of different elements come together to support the business community. So just to give everybody a sense of where we are, we relaunched, I guess I'd say, PPP about 2 weeks ago. We kicked it off and we opened it for community financial institutions. Now, that was a subset of the broader network of financial institutions that are able to support PPP, and include minority depository institutions, community development financial institutions, microlenders, those types of lending organizations. That following Friday, we opened it up for institutions with assets of $1 billion or less. And then last week on Tuesday, we opened it up to all lenders. So we're fully into PPP at this point. The period for application for PPP ends on March 31st. So it's a pretty short window. And if you're thinking that this might be a program for you, I encourage you to go get with your lenders now to start the process. So what the stimulus did is it made some adjustments to what we're now calling first draw loans. So that's your first loan that you may have received in 2020 through the CARES Act and the subsequent PPP Flexibility Act, or you could now be receiving your first PPP loan. And again, that will be under the first draw rules. Some of the key eligibility constraints around the program on the first draw include 500 or fewer employees, for-profit business or 501c3 nonprofits, other types of nonprofits, and newly added are 501c6, destination marketing organizations, housing cooperatives, things like that. So we did add some additional business entities that can begin participating in first draw PPP. Businesses had to have been in business and operating as of February 15th of 2020. The new rules around PPP, or let me take a step back. The PPP, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, is based on average monthly revenue. So when you looked at average monthly payroll, sorry about that, times 2.5. So you look at either 2019 payroll, or if you're just getting your PPP for the first time, you can use 2020 payroll as well. Take the look at the average monthly payroll, multiply times 2.5. That's your max loan amount, up to $10 million. Once your loan is dispersed, and again, you apply for these loans through private sector lenders, you have between 8 and 24 weeks is called your covered period, where you spend these funds, at least 60% of which need to go towards payroll costs, which include both cash and non-cash compensation, and then 40% on other eligible expenses, with things like leases, utilities, mortgage interest, and some additional covered expenses that were added as part of the most recent stimulus around ongoing operations expenses, for example, cloud-based tools that you use to operate your business, employee protection expenses, certain expenses related to disaster damage suffered by your business, other supplier type expenses. So kind of a broader world of options for you to use these funds for that are eligible and can be forgiven. Again, this is a forgivable loan. So as long as you use the proceeds in accordance with the guidelines of the program, you can apply for forgiveness, meaning that the federal government then pays off that loan on your behalf up to the full amount of the loan. So again, really great opportunity for businesses to get access to some finances to keep their employees on staff and to take care of some of those operational expenses. So great, we got the first draw. You already took one. You're kind of like, okay, what are my options then? I've already taken a PPP loan in 2020. What is now available? And this is where the second draw came into effect. So as I think both congressmen mentioned, second draw is a more targeted program, the intent of which is to really drive the dollars, the appropriated funds towards those businesses that are in greatest need. Key criteria here are, again, business had been in operation as of February 15th. And I'm using business broadly, also nonprofits. The same eligible group for first draw is eligible for second draw. So, but some of those other criteria include that you can only have 300 employees or less, and you need to show that you've suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. So that's looking at 1 quarter in 2020 versus a quarter in 2019. And it's got to be kind of an apples to apples comparison. So it's Q3 2020 versus Q3 of 2019 would be kind of the example that you would use to make that comparison. Other differences around the second draw PPP, because largely everything's the same, is that the max loan amount is smaller. First draw is up to 10 million, second draw is only up to 2 million. Still based on average monthly payroll times 2.5, except for borrowers in the accommodations and food services industry code. And that's 72, where they can go up to 3.5 times average monthly payroll, as Congressman Castan mentioned. We do have a new application that you can go to make application for PPP second draw, which has some additional information it asks for in order to support the second draw application. And oops, sorry. The other thing that I just want to mention as an additional eligibility consideration is you do to receive a second draw, you do have to have received a first draw and used the full amount of that first draw loan only for eligible expenses. So you need to be able to certify that that's the case before you can apply for a second draw. Good news is you don't have to have received forgiveness on your first draw loan before you can apply, but you will have to make certain certifications. So those are some of the key differences, first draw versus second draw. And again, if you haven't received a PPP loan at all so far for your entity, then you would be eligible to apply for a first draw loan at this time. From the standpoint of loan forgiveness, Congress did make some changes around loan forgiveness as well to benefit of the small businesses. So one of the key elements of that is when you apply for forgiveness, if you received an economic injury disaster loan advance, which was a grant issued to your business based on the number of employees if you applied for it, originally that was deducted from the amount of forgiveness. The new stimulus basically separated those two programs. So forgiveness is only based on your use of the PPP expenses. You won't have that reduction of the EIDL, as we call it, advance. Note that if you've already applied for forgiveness and that has been subtracted out, we're going through our records to determine where that's the case and then remit payment, additional forgiveness payment to the bank on your behalf for that forgiveness amount. So you as the borrower should not have to do anything to make that happen. We're doing that on the back end. Congress also clarified that PPP loans are not taxable income, so it's not considered revenue for tax purposes, and that expenses paid with PPP loan funds are now eligible for, are now tax deductible. This was a big deal. IRS came out with a ruling last year that said that that wasn't the case. Now it's codified in the Economic Aid Act, which is definitely beneficial to the business and kind of makes the PPP forgiveness neutral from the standpoint of your taxes. And we also have issued actually a simplified forgiveness application for loans, PPP loans of $150,000 or less. So hopefully this is when you go through the forgiveness process where you make application, you provide appropriate documentation to support your application for forgiveness, which means, you know, how you use the money, how you spend it, making sure that you met that 60% threshold on payroll costs. It's just a simpler two-page application that you'll go through if your loan's $150,000 or less. So that's just good news, less overhead for you as a business owner if you have a loan that meets that criteria. So that's kind of the quick overview of PPP and where we are right now. I know there's a lot of unique circumstances that folks are interested in asking questions about, so I look forward to that. But I did want to touch on a couple of other programs that have come down the pipe as part of the stimulus passed in December that are relevant to a lot of either businesses that are on this webinar right now or businesses that are impacted in this way. So first off is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. As discussed earlier, this is really hyper targeted at those live performance venues, independent movie theaters, small museums, and live performance promoters. And it's focused on those businesses that have experienced significant decrease in revenue year over year. So if you think about, this is a grant, and the way that the law tells us that we need to implement is we need to give priority to these venues that are most impacted first. So they get to apply first. And that means that I'm a venue and I'm down 90% or more revenue, I get to apply in the first 2 weeks of the opening of that grant. If I'm a venue and I'm down more than 70%, I get priority in that second week. So, or second tranche, which is the next is weeks 3 and 4 after we launch the program. So, so really focused on those kinds of businesses impacted that way. Now, these grants are up to $10 million. And depending on if the business was in operation on January 1st of 2019 or not, it's generally based upon 45% of your gross revenue or gross receipts during that 2019, the calendar year 2019. So it can be a significant resource for businesses that fall into those groups that would be eligible. Some of the eligibility criteria are being fleshed out. They're very specific in the law as to what constitutes a live performance venue, some of the business criteria and physical criteria that are necessary in order to qualify. So those are some of the things that we're working on putting into rules that then you as business owners can take a look at and understand whether you might qualify or not. One of the big things that you'll have to think about and that we're working on guidance for is if you receive a PPP loan after December 27th of 2020, you can't receive a Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. If you receive a Shuttered Venues Operators Grant, you can't receive a PPP after 12/27/20. So just something to think about looking at as we roll out those criteria on who's eligible. Think about what your options are between PPP and shuttered venues, what the likelihood is that you meet the criteria for shuttered venues, and then trying to make that business decision as to which one would be most beneficial for you to apply for. But all I would say is more to come on that front because it is a brand new program that we're rolling out. I did also mention the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Again, this is a direct loan program with SBA where you apply. It's a long-term, low-interest loan. I think our rates are 3.75% up to 30-year term for these loans. And again, it's to help support the working capital needs that your business has. You apply directly through SBA through a streamlined application process. And then, assuming that all of the documentation and everything in the application goes through, then you will be issued a loan, and the payments on that loan will be deferred for 12 months. I know a lot of people have applied for the EIDL, as we call it, this loan, and they've gotten declined. Just know that if you are declined for the EIDL, you do have the option to request reconsideration, which basically you're appealing the decline of the loan and providing additional information to support why you should have been eligible to receive the loan. So you have up to 6 months to do that, and the loan processing center will let you know what documentation they need in order to review that loan. It'll come through in that initial decline letter. If you're having difficulties though, I just want to encourage you to reach out to us at the SBA. We're the field organization. We have an Office of Disaster Assistance. We're separate, and a lot of times we can also help you navigate the process where possible, just to make sure that you can, to the max extent is possible, be able to secure the resources that you need. I also wanted to touch on, related to the EIDL, or the economic injury disaster loan, we also, the legislation also allowed for a new program called the Targeted EIDL Advance Program. So if many of you recall that there was a grant program as part of the CARES Act, the EIDL Emergency Advance Grant, and that was up to $10,000 based on the number of employees that you had at $1,000 per employee. Now, the Targeted EIDL Advance Program is, again, very targeted towards a subset of the types of businesses and nonprofits that were eligible for that initial grant. And kind of to just give you an idea of the mechanics of how the Targeted EIDL Advance is going to be implemented, our first priority, we're going to look at those businesses and nonprofits that received a grant of less than $10,000, so who already received a grant. And then we're going to determine if they be, well, let me take a step back. Targeted EIDL advances, there are certain eligibility criteria that are, again, more targeted than what the initial EIDL grants were. You have to have 300 or fewer employees. You have to be located in a low income community. And you have to be able to show a 30% decrease in revenues during an 8-week period in 2020 when compared against an 8-week period in 2019. So that it's a smaller group that's going to be eligible for that. The way that we're going to implement it is we're going to look at all of the businesses that received an EIDL advance in 2020, but less than $10,000. We're going to determine if those entities are in low-income communities, and then we'll reach out to them because they would be eligible for additional grants so that they can kind of the difference, the balance to get them up to the $10,000 total for the advance grant. So if I had an original advance of $5,000, I would be eligible to receive up to an additional $5,000 if I meet those other eligibility criteria. The second group we're going to look at is those folks that applied for the grant, but did not receive it because we exhausted all the funds. Again, business or nonprofit will have to be in a low-income community, 300 or fewer employees, show that revenue loss, but we will, again, be reaching out proactively to those entities that meet the criteria, the 300 or fewer employees and the low-income community, and we'll reach out directly. So that's what's coming down the pipe. There's some good information on our website right now, but we just want people to be informed that, you know, SBA, if you are in a low-income community, you did receive, either you didn't receive the grant that you had applied for, or you received something less than 10,000, that SBA will likely be reaching out to you to to support your application or completing the application to receive the additional grant funds that you may be eligible for. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, which is kind of a big deal, is the debt relief program. So this is the where the federal government on your behalf pays principal, interest, and fee payments on SBA loans. So that's 7A, 504 microloans on the borrower's behalf. For pretty much all borrowers, they'll be eligible for 3 months of these debt relief payments, with a subset of borrowers who are in certain industry codes eligible for an additional 5 months of these principal, interest, and fee payments. So really big deal for those businesses that have loans that are SBA related, and it's an opportunity for them to get some breathing room, I'd say, on their working capital needs, because they won't be required to make these loan payments. So really good news for those borrowers as well. And then we have made some temporary 7A loan program, or not we, Congress made some temporary 7A loan program adjustments to make loan program, the SBA loan programs more beneficial to the borrowers, cost of capital less, for example, fee waivers on all 7A loans, increasing the limits for the express loan program, which is a super simple application process that we allow lenders to just use their own paperwork, kind of streamlines the whole thing. So if you're looking for more conventional loan access through SBA, it's a really good time because there's some beneficial programs out there, and I recommend you talk to your banking partner. And lastly, the 8A Business Development Program is it's a business development program where we help socially and economically disadvantaged businesses build capacity through federal contracting. Every business that is participating in that program at this time gets a year extension in the program, which is a big deal. It's a 9-year program typically, but with Congress's action now, businesses get that extra year. There are certain criteria I'm not going to go into right now, but just know that that's another benefit that has gone to small businesses as part of the stimulus. So I know that's a lot. It's a lot for us to digest as well. And here's some information to just share about next steps for you as a business owner or a nonprofit. If you're interested in PPP, certainly reach out to your lender. If you don't have a lender that you want to use, whether it's first or second draw, you can find one at sba.gov/lender match. Really great resource to connect borrowers with lenders. For more information on PPP, you can go to sba.gov/PPP. Everything is there. All of the applications for first draw, second draw, for forgiveness, everything's there. So encourage you to take a look at that. And then if you want local help, you can certainly reach out to us at the Illinois District at illinois.do@sba.gov, or work with our resource partners. We have great small business development centers here in the state of Illinois, for example, at Waubonsie College, at College DuPage, just really great resources here out here in the western suburbs, but across the state of Illinois. You can find them at sba.gov/local-assistance. And again, contact the district office too if you just really don't know where to go. We're here to help you directly or get you to the right people that can help you. So with that, I'll stop because I know there's probably lots of questions, and definitely want to get to all of those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for that fantastic presentation. As you mentioned, we already have quite a few questions already gathering in the chat. So if you have a question, make sure to get it in the chat. Thank you again to Bo Steiner, Congressman Bill Foster, and Sean Casten. Representative Underwood's video. We put that in the chat for you as well, and that will be emailed out as well. But speaking of the chat, our very own Director of Government Affairs, Reba Osborne, is going to moderate the chat for us. Thank you, Reba, for putting this all together and really taking the lead on making this happen so that we can educate our members. So Reba, take it away.
Thank you. I make everything happen except my video. But anyway, thank you again to everyone. This was a magnificent presentation. Thank you so much for Congressman Foster and Sean Casten and the whole team at Underwood, Congresswoman Underwood's office. You guys are great to work with. So, and also we have the expert Bo Steiner. So we're so thankful to have everyone. And I will start the questions. So the first question is 501c3s, does it have to show a reduction in donations to qualify?
Sure. So, so there are still requirements on nonprofits to show a reduction in their receipts. I would say, I don't know if, again, there are certain technical, I guess, criteria that you'd want to look at. But we do, and I'll follow up with the Naperville Area Chamber, but we do have a document that talks about how to calculate and how to show your reduction in revenues, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit. So I would refer you to that. And it also talks to how you calculate your loan amounts. So what I'll try to do here in a minute is I'll get the link for that document in there. It's the best resource, whether you're for-profit, nonprofit, sole proprietor, with employees, sole proprietor without. It's just a really great tool that you can use to calculate your loan amounts and the reduction in receipts.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, next question. I started my business January 23, 2020. So I can compare I can't compare 2020 to 2019. Would I still be able to apply?
Yeah, you should be still able to apply. So the key criteria there was that you were in business as of February 15th, 2020. And we do have, again, in our guidelines, some, there is a component to that discusses businesses like yours that are very, very new and how you would calculate the loan amount and the reduction in revenue year over year. So again, I will point you to that document because I think it'll more clearly address your concern.
Awesome, thank you very much. When does the shuttered venue operators grant process begin? Is it also ending on March 31st? Sure.
So the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, it does not right now. There's no timeline on basically the application period where they'll begin either accepting applications or when that period will end. So we're hoping to have some more information on that program coming up here later this week as to maybe to hopefully answer some of these questions. The key thing is that since this is a grant, we're determining certain, the process flow and how we're actually going to accept the grant applications and all of those things. So I would say more to come on that. If you do want to find our website is the best way or the best source of information, the latest and greatest. It's at sba.gov/coronavirus, and you can find all kinds of, whether it's the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant or the Targeted EIDL. All of those programs are listed there and you can find out the most current information.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Are there any stimulus programs / grants targeted to businesses that are helping restaurants specifically?
I'm not aware of, the kind of support, I guess that would be kind of the supporting business infrastructure around the restaurant industry. I'm not aware of any specific program, but certainly as a business, just generally, you would be eligible for application to PPP if you met the eligibility criteria, and likewise the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So I would explore those. Those are where the bulk of the funding from Congress has come to SBA, and they're also probably the quickest way to get access to that funding that you need.
Yeah,
Awesome.
If I can jump in for a second, we lost that fight with the Senate. There was something called the Restaurants Act that provided very targeted relief for restaurants. It was not included in the final deal because the Senate wouldn't buy into it. So we tried, and we're continuing to try as the COVID relief keeps going.
Wonderful. Great information. Thank you very much. For shuttered venue operators, does it require minimum number of employees and or do contractors fulfill such a requirement?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer for you on that one. We're still, like I mentioned, we're still going through the rulemaking on that so that we can clearly explain to every business that may be eligible exactly what those criteria are and what we're going to look for. Now, one of the things that the grant itself, from the standpoint of eligible uses of proceeds, does address is that you can use those funds to pay 1099 independent contractors, which is different than the Paycheck Protection Program, where that is not an eligible use of proceeds. But as far as the application process, you know, it's kind of TBD right now on exactly what that's going to look like.
Perfect, thank you. I have an EIDL loan, but may have under ask given the long timeline we're trying to survive. Can I ask for more?
You can. So there's a process within which you can request an additional funding through the EIDL program. I do have some instructions that I can share on what that process looks like and what you'll want to provide to the Office of Disaster Assistance with SBA. So let me copy that, and I can put it in the chat and or get that frequently asked question to the Naperville Area Chamber to distribute to everyone.
Okay, great. So this is along those lines. If a business received an EIDL loan, can they apply for a second one? So it's basically when you're asking for more, you would be asking for another application, or would it, how does that work?
Yeah, so you're going to be looking at the same loan. You're just seeking an increase to that loan that has already been approved and dispersed. At least right now, there is no option to apply for a second EIDL. It will be rejected as duplicate at this point in time, but you know, certainly they can, you know, a business can apply for additional funding on their original loan. The key is going to be explaining that need very clearly and providing whatever documentation they would like you to provide in order to support that request.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. If we spend the PPP2 money in less than 8 weeks, can we submit for forgiveness earlier?
So the covered period, that's an interesting question. We don't get that one very much, but so I don't know that I can answer that specifically. I mean, I think the way that the rules are written right now, it's a minimum of 8 weeks is the covered period, up to 24 weeks. And you as the business owner, the nonprofit, you have the option to elect whichever time period in between there works best for you. But let me go back to the drawing board on that one and see if I can find an answer for you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Is there a program for a startup company still ramping up but doesn't show 25% revenue reduction?
So, yeah, I mean, I think the programs, at least right now, that are available would just be the, you know, if you haven't taken a first draw PPP, and I guess it depends when you started up, right? If you were in business as of February 15th, you would be eligible to apply for a first draw PPP if you haven't already received one. But if you don't have that 25% decrease, or you don't meet that criteria, then I would still recommend the EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, as another option to secure working capital in the near term, barring other options out there.
Awesome, thank you. That is all the questions in the chat. Please put any more questions that we have not addressed in the chat. Just real quickly, thank you so much, Congressman Foster, Casten, and Underwood. I know all of you were very much fighting for 501c6s for our chambers to be able to apply for PPP. So we really appreciate that. That did not go unnoticed. We really appreciate your support on that. Let's see. Oh, I have some more questions coming in here. several cultural institutions that are long-standing nonprofits have suffered greatly because they may not meet the employee criteria given their relationship with other public institutions, city, park, districts, etc. Are you, as you consider the rules, we ask respectfully that you this is taken into account?
For sure, always want to get that feedback, and we'll feed that up to the policy folks. I'll put an email address in there too for these kinds of concerns where you can share it directly with our policy team for the shuttered venue operators grants in particular. That we're definitely looking for feedback from industry to understand some of the needs and some of the concerns. Obviously, we have there's certain criteria that's written into the law that we can't deviate from, but to the extent that we can make the rules that are in alignment with congressional intent and aren't overly onerous to our businesses and nonprofits, that's where we want to go.
Just as an aside on that, we're in the process of having conversations with Morton Arboretum about exactly that issue, because they don't quite fit in the buckets of what's there, but there should be an intent. So keep in touch. I think we may have a way through, but we're working on it.
Awesome, great information. Okay, so Bo, thank you. He's put a website link in the chat that is very helpful. So everyone take advantage of that. And any more last chance to ask questions? Any more questions that you have in the chat? All right, wonderful. Okay, so just in wrap up, I would invite Congressman Castan and Foster, any closing remarks, any parting words for us?
Hang in there. We're doing what we can. We hope we have more good news in the next few weeks, and it's going to be a very tense negotiation. Which side we're going to be on.
And I would just say what I said before. Count your lucky stars that you got Bo Steiner here. The volume of loans and activity that went through your office and the management of all those headaches last time, hugely appreciate it. There will be more headaches, because every time we tweak this program, we find that there's something we didn't quite think about, and we fix it legislatively. But it's good to have people on the ground in the implementation. So thank you, Bo, and hopefully I'm not creating any more work for you by telling everybody to lean on you harder. But you've been so good so far. That is great. Thank you so much. So just singing some more praises. I think there's an issue that one of our, I don't know if Sean LaFortune is on the call. One of our accounting members brought to the attention the whole deductibility of the funds, and all your offices were great at listening and looking at that policy, and we're very, very grateful that that got taken care of, because that could have been very costly at the end of the year. So I love the exchange of information that we have with all your offices. That is what you guys are wonderful to work with. And someone asked that, late breaking, will the recording of the session be available to members who want to review it? Lindsay, is that part of the plan to have this?
Yes, of course.
Perfect, perfect. So we will send this out to all of our participants. Is that correct? Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yes, we'll send this out to everybody registered.
And in addition to that, we will make sure to include Representative Underwood's statement. Ashley, I want to give you the chance as well. Do you have anything else that you want to say or add to our conversation?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Congressman Foster and Castan, for being here. Again, I apologize the Congresswoman couldn't make it, but I will put my contact information and our office phone number if anyone needs to reach out for any reason. We can make inquiries on to the SBA. We are in constant contact with them, and if you're not one of the Congresswoman's constituents, we will get you connected to either Congressman Foster or Congressman Castan's office.
Wonderful. That is awesome. And Bo, thank you again. I know you have gotten 1,000 requests to do these webinars, but we really appreciate you taking time to invest your time into the Naperville Chamber. So thank you very much, and I will turn it back over to Kaylin.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate thanks. Thanks to Reba for helping put this together. Maria from Foster's office, Congressman Foster, Congressman Castan, Congresswoman Underwood, and Bo Steiner. I've heard your name, Bo, on so many conversations of Bo said this and Bo said that, so it's nice to put a face to a name and to be able to hear it firsthand myself. So thank you so much for sharing that presentation, and thank you to all of our elected officials for fighting for our businesses in DC. And we have some elected officials, I see the mayor's here with us as well, working with our businesses here in Naperville. So the Chamber, we are your advocate, we are your resource, taking care of our community, and we hope to continue to do that. You will get all this information, and truly thank you for joining us here today. You'll get the recording, and I appreciate everybody's time. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Ending on time, I'm impressed. So thank
Awesome.
you all. Bo, if you didn't see, the mayor had asked, can you provide the link to EIDL for additional funds?
Yeah, I'm gonna put the link in.
We gotta save this chat line. This chat here is quite valuable. So we will make sure to include this in our email back to folks.
Yeah, so this is the FAQ, and I think if you go to the third page, it talks about requesting, or the third or fourth page, it talks about requesting an increase to your loan amount. So
that's great. And coincidentally, when we were on this call, I got an email from our lender saying our PPP loan was secured. So interesting timing, but thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks to everyone for getting C6 is included this time. So awesome. Well, thank you all. I will let you have a great rest of your afternoon. Stay safe and snow-free. So, I did get my neighbor notified that we are going to be taken care of. So my kids are thrilled and looking forward to it. Thank you all.
All right. Bye-bye.